Hi, Kevin, and hello, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful new platform where I am very honoured to be interviewing incredible people. Now, not just from the same industry, different industries, and also from around the world. Now, today I am joined by no other than the very inspirational Kevin Gaskell, who was nominated one of the UK's top 40 leaders and has incredibly led the transformation of 14 companies, some to record growth, including iconic brands such as Porsche, Lamborghini and BMW. Now, when Kevin left BMW, he went on to start his first tech company. And throughout his career, he has built over £3 billion in shareholder value. Now, Kevin, we have learned that you played international cricket and you are now in a rock band. And anybody who has seen you present and speak publicly will know that you have travelled to not just the North Pole, but also the South Pole, and also with your son, Matt. And together you've also climbed some of the world's highest mountains and raised money for cancer research, which I know is very close to your heart indeed. Now, jump back to December 2019, and if that wasn't enough already, Kevin, you rode, and that's road, not road, that's my Yorkshire accent, I'm afraid, unsupported across the Atlantic Ocean, not just to raise money to fight plastics in the ocean, but you only went and bloody did it, and you set a new world record for the fastest crossing. So well done to you and all of your team. And might I say, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. But I have to ask one thing first. Where do you find the time for a cuppa and a biscuit? Over to you.
I'm usually sitting here at my desk, to be truthful. People say to me, how'd you cram everything in? And I heard a long time ago, somebody said, hang on, you've got as many hours in the day, as many days in the week, as many weeks in the year as Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci. Now, they were geniuses, and I'm absolutely not. But if you use that time effectively, you can create what you want to create. You can achieve what you set your heart out to achieve. And so as I say to people, I don't play golf. I don't watch the TV. I do what I love doing, and that is building companies and rowing oceans, climbing mountains. That's what I love doing. So that's what I do.
And you do it very well. And you currently look after 5 companies at the moment. And before we start about that, I want to ask you something, Kevin. Now, when you have that next idea, that next plan for your challenge, such as rowing the Atlantic Ocean, climbing the mountains, going to the North and the South Pole, and I know that when you first went to the North Pole, it was your good friend Pete who got you to take that risk. You thought, right, this is going to be good. And you were there with another gentleman called Alan, and you had the best time ever. But where does that spark, that golden nugget, where does it begin? Where do you suddenly think, that's the next thing I'm going to do? How does it begin? How does it catch your imagination? Where does that seed start?
Well, I grew up in North Wales, and I started to climb mountains at school. So we would go at the weekend, we'd go to Snowdonia, we'd climb mountains. So the climbing came from there. And then it just kind of got bigger, and the mountains got bigger, and we traveled further. And then the first North Pole thing, I've been to North Pole twice because my son was too young the first time. So the first North Pole thing came about because, as you say, there's a guy called Pete Goss, who's a very famous sailor. And Pete's a mate of mine, and Pete said, I got this idea. He said, I'm going to build a land yacht, and I'm going to sail it to the North Pole. And I said, you're going to sail a yacht to the North Pole? He said, yeah, over the ice. He said, but I've got to walk there first. I got to check out the terrain. He said, I need to build a team, and I need some crazy people. You're crazy. Do you want to come? I said, love to. So it was Pete Goss, Alan Chambers, MBE, who's a very famous polar explorer. He was the leader of the expedition because he's very familiar with polar exploits, and me and a couple of other guys. and one lady, who was fantastic. And that's how it started. And then, well, if you've done the North Pole, the South Pole's kind of obvious. So that was the South Pole a couple of years later. And then back to the North Pole because Matt, my son, was then old enough to go to the North Pole. So we walked there together. And it's kind of gone on from there, really. And the Atlantic crossing came about because, again, a friend of mine, South African explorer, said, Kev, I rode the ocean. You'd love it. You'd really enjoy it. And so I said, Pete, I said, Pete, that's really not the kind of thing I can imagine doing. You know, a couple of months in a tiny rowing boat going across it. He said, you'll love it. And I went away and I thought about it for a year. And I asked my son, and my son said, no. And my son's a guy who, you know, county standard triathlete, enters Ironman competitions, all this stuff. And I said, Matt, how do you fancy rowing the ocean? He said, no. I said, why? He said, it'll be pain, and more pain. I'm not doing it. Okay, so the idea kind of went away. And then I was speaking at a conference to a maritime audience. And somebody asked me, what's your next expedition? I said, well, I don't really have one planned, but I'd really like to row the Atlantic. Anybody want to come? And everybody laughs. And then one guy came up to me afterwards and said, I would. And I've got a couple of guys who do it with us. So we put that team together, published it on social media. The phone rang within 5 minutes. It was my son saying, what's this then? I said, what about me? I said, Matt, you didn't want to come for 3 years. I've been asking you. He said, it's real. I want to come now. Okay, come along. So there we are. That was the crew. And we set off, as you said, in December last year. And we arrived in Antigua at the end of January. And it was just the most fun. I mean, it was just great fun. It was a bit frightening. We got turned upside down. We got shot out of the boat. You know, you have days like that. We had one day where we got hammered by a storm that broke our oars, and our oars are carbon fiber with shafts like this, and they were just broken in half. But we had a couple of spare oars, so we got absolutely hammered. But hey, what an experience! Great fun, just great fun. And you know, the beauty is, it takes your mind away from work.
Yeah. Because
the rest of the time, I'm running companies. You know, I'm chairman of 5 businesses. I'm busy, particularly right now, keeping businesses alive. And so going on an expedition like that, where you've got to think about survival, and so you don't have time to think about other stuff. So cash flow goes out of your mind, and all the little worries in the business go out of your mind, and you're focused on what you're doing. So it's a great break.
You did it brilliantly, and I can't even begin to imagine that feeling when you touched land again, but then found out that you had set a new world record. What were the emotions that went through your mind, Kevin, at that point?
Well, you know, before we started, some of the guys, and the guys are all very young, they were all half my age. And I said, so what do you want to get out of this expedition? Why do you want to come with me? You know, I'm an old man. Why do you want to come with me? And they said, well, we'll never get it together, but we know you will. And you've done expeditions before and we haven't. And they were all experienced mariners, except Matt, my son. So these guys had all worked on super yachts. They'd all sailed dinghies. They were all very competent sailors. Yeah. But there's a big difference between that and being in a 20-foot rowing boat and crossing, you know, 100 million square miles of water, which is what it is. And it's 5 miles deep. So if you drop something, you're not going to catch it. And it was about 14 days before we thought we would reach land that we got a call from shore. So it's a race, and there's a race control back on shore. And we were chatting to them, giving them an update. Yes, we're okay. Here's where we are. This, that, and the other. They can see where we are from the radar, from the satellite anyway. But they said, do you know that you guys are on for a world record? Now, as I say, we started off by saying, what do we want to do? Yeah. And the guys all said, we want to break the world record. And I said, forget that. You want to break the world record, you're not going to do it with me in the boat. You need to do it once with me, understand how it works, and then all you young kids get in this boat and row like Billy-O. Yeah. But I worked really hard for 2 years to get fit for the crossing. And so we were all rowing very hard. Yeah. And about 14 days before the end, race control said, you guys are on for a world record here. And then we started plotting it. We hadn't thought about it before. We started plotting it. How many miles do we have to do each day? And. So as we got closer to Antigua, we knew that we had we thought we had about 12 hours in the bag, as it were, but we actually went faster and faster. We ended up breaking the world record by 23 hours. So, it's quite a feat. 36 days at sea.
Yeah.
Basically broke the world record by one day.
Mm-hmm.
Great fun. Just great fun.
You've set the new benchmark. And I guess you're looking for the third Pete, who maybe you don't know yet, for your next challenge, who's going to get you roped into something. And have you got something up your sleeve that you are quietly working on now? Can I ask, have we got an exclusive, or is the moment as it stands during lockdown, have you put the pause on what that challenge might be, or is something ticking over in your mind?
No, something's ticking over. In fact, we were discussing it yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's to cross the Sahara Desert,
Wow.
but in a kite buggy. So a little 3-wheel buggy with a power kite,
yeah,
which is a one-man buggy,
mm-hmm.
and then there'd be 5 of us,
yeah,
and try and cross the Sahara, which is a completely crazy thing to do, completely mad. So sounds like fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun. You'll need your factor 50 and then some in the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, and all the logistics that go with it. The logistics are the key. The planning is what makes it a success.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. I was going to say they are absolutely, and that's something that I think that your core to everything that you do, whether it's personal, business, everything at the core is rooted in a strong plan. And I'm curious, what parallels have you found when it came to the discipline with rowing the Atlantic, and when you've talked about going to the North Poles on both occasions, each item, each decision, everything had to be regimented and routine to the letter, because it was the difference between life and death. And now we're in a position where businesses are looking at how they establish those new strong routines rooted with a plan. Where do you draw the parallels from each of those instances where one is life or death in an extreme environment, and then you're in a business environment which is completely different?
Well, for a start, we never think about life or death. So it never enters our head that it's going to go wrong, because I think if it did, the doubt would set in. So we never think about that. Brilliant. But we do approach the expeditions in the same way as I approach running a company.
Yeah.
And when I run a company, I start off with 3 things, 3 C's. That is commit. Mm-hmm. What is it we're committing to do here? What are we actually determined to achieve? And then be really committed to it. Mm-hmm. The second piece is connect. So what is the plan? Mm-hmm. What are the pieces that we need in that plan? What are the elements that we need to do to pull the plan together to achieve the commit? Mm-hmm. And then the third piece is create. And we say create magic, and that's the fun. That's the teamwork.
Yeah.
But the create magic is the mortar that glues all the other lumps together, and the other lumps are the pieces of the plan. So the plan for crossing the Atlantic was very, very detailed. It was a 2-year project. And to give you an idea, just before we set sail, we went through our checklist. Yeah. Our checklist was 413 items that we had to check before we left shore. Mm-hmm. So it's a very detailed plan, but it's the same in a business. Mm-hmm. And when I run businesses, that's how I do it. Commit. Yeah. What is it we're setting out to achieve? Mm-hmm. Connect. How do we get everybody in this business to be aligned with that plan? Because people are incredible. If I can give people the opportunity to contribute to the business, they will do that. And I've never met anybody who wants to do a bad job.
No.
I've met a lot of people who are doing a bad job. That's because they don't know what's expected of them. Yeah. And that's a leadership problem. So let's make sure people understand what's expected of them. So we make the plan very visible. It's very open. We don't have secret plans. It goes on one sheet of paper. It goes on the wall. It's not a big lever arch file. It goes somewhere in a file somewhere. No. This is very open. We talk about it. because I want people to help us to achieve it. I want everybody in the business to be part of this. And you know, when we build businesses, and I think I've built 14 or 15 now, we don't talk about financial measures.
No.
We talk about coming on a journey. Let's go and build something that's extraordinary. Let's go and achieve something that we can look back on and say, hey, look what we did. Look what we did together. How incredible was that? And you know, the first one was the Porsche story, which is where we took a brand that was number 32 out of 32 in the market. Yeah. You can't go any lower. And in 4 years, we took it to number 1. And we did that with the same team of people. Didn't bring in the management all-stars. We did it with the same team of people. And that journey was such fun. I mean, it was so hard.
Yeah.
You know, there were tears and there were shouts and there were cries of anguish and all of that stuff. Yes, of course there were. It was a tough, tough journey. But it's like climbing a mountain. There are going to be moments you hurt your hand or bash your elbow or bang your head or fall off and get caught in the rope. All that happens.
Yeah.
And it's the same in business. You have those days, but pick yourself up, dust yourself off. Let's go again. We're in this together. We'll get to the top together. And that's the magic that we try to create in our businesses. And you know, the Atlantic Row, the motto on the boat was, we start as friends and we end as friends. That's it. Whatever happens, happens.
And I suppose what is really fascinating, and if you to look at the psychology as well, in any journey where there is that start, the middle period, the end period, you as people will also change and evolve and grow. I imagine, to take the Atlantic Row, for example, that first day of rowing compared to the last day of rowing, and how as a team you had grown together. You'll see that in your businesses as well. And I think that's rather magical in the same capacity, because the behaviors, like anything, if they change but change together, the growth will then present itself united. What was it like when you take that first day to when you take the last day, and how examples of that has just blossomed or not?
Yeah, it's because, you know, I always joke that when you go on an expedition, for the first 7 days, you can't find anything. I know I've got a spoon here, or I know I've got a carabiner somewhere, or I know that, where's that rope? Where's that rope? Where's the... And for the first 7 days, you can't find anything. Yeah. It's packed somewhere. Yeah. But it gradually becomes more familiar, and stuff goes in your pockets. And so the whole thing becomes familiar and becomes easy. And the boat is just a microcosm of running a big complex business. Yeah, it's just a small. It's exactly the same, but in small. So when we started, at first the changeover, I mean, it sounds easy, but you're in the middle of the Atlantic, and there's 5 big blokes on a boat that is 1 meter wide, and we've got to get to the other end and sit in a seat without falling overboard. Yeah, all of that stuff is actually quite difficult. And on the first day, it was terrible. And we trained for 2 years. We've been out to sea in it. But there's a big difference between training in the Solent and going out into an Atlantic storm. It's totally different. Yeah. And it's the same in business. When you start, it's all a bit clunky. But then people find their way, and they find shortcuts, and things become familiar. And so the stuff that was an issue at the beginning isn't an issue anymore. So by the end of the row, of course, it was seamless. You know, we could change places. We could do everything. And we didn't even have to speak to each other, really, because everyone knew that Will would make the water and Kev would boil the water, and this would happen and that would happen. And in between all of that, we're just rowing, because we rowed 24 hours a day. Yeah. And if somebody said to me, what do you do at night? I said, what do you think we do? They said, well, do you get off onto a big boat and have a shower? I said, oh, yeah, and a steak and a beer, and it's great. Oh, really? No. We just keep rowing. And it becomes a routine, and running a business becomes a routine. And of course, the challenge in the business is that if it becomes too much of a routine, you're not looking for the improvement. Yes. So there are times when my job as a business leader is to push for that lift, is to push hard for that lift. And you know, that's what I've been doing my whole life. And it's not about saying, you know, let's grow 3% next year. Yeah. It's about saying, how do we grow 300% next year? People look at me and say, you're crazy. And I say, no. What would you do? If you had to do that, what would you do? And, you know, go back to the boat.
Yeah.
On the first night, we got caught in a storm. It smashed our oars. We
Yeah.
could have packed up with that. We were 100 miles from shore. We could have stopped and said, right, we're going to limp back to the marine and call it quits. I said, no, we're going to have to change the way we row. We're going to have to protect the oars we've got left.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to go differently. So you change your mindset. And it just made us more determined. It just absolutely made us more determined. And it's the same in business.
Yeah.
Tough times, if you can build the culture where people will work together, will make you more determined. And that's the strength. And it's about building people, letting people enjoy the journey, helping people become creative. People are incredible. Give them the chance, they will contribute.
They do. And it's very much lifting the cap off those limits that sometimes we impose on ourselves, and sometimes they can be imposed on us. And during this time with lockdown, would you say that a lot of what people have created, and then what has become quite intuitive in the way in which they've established those good habits, would you say that they've had to really dig deep to find that next level of resolve during this time in lockdown? And how has all of that prior work lent itself to where they are now? Or have they almost had to create a second version of themselves so they can lean into that under the current circumstances? What does it look like at the moment?
I think it's very difficult to give a sweeping generalization. People react in different ways. And we know some people have found this lockdown very, very tough.
Yeah.
And then there are other people who are lucky like me. And I'm lucky because I work at home 60% of the time anyway. So it's not that big a shift for me.
No.
Yeah, I'm getting frustrated now. I am. And I know that some of the younger staff in some of my businesses have found this lockdown really difficult. And I was speaking to one of them the other week, and she said, I'm just fed up now. I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, I just want to go shopping. I said, well, you can shop online. That's not the same. She said, I don't want to buy anything. I just want to go in the shops. So I said, okay, well, let's talk about something else you could do. I said, like what? And I play guitar. And I said, learn to play, because she's always pulling my leg about being an old rocker, and she's a young lady in her early 20s.
Yeah.
And I said, I tell you what, learn to play the guitar. She said, I can't play the guitar. I said, no, but what a good time. I said, I'll lend you one of mine. I've got a dozen other things. You can borrow one of mine, and you can. I've probably got some teach yourself guitar books somewhere. You find it. You'll find it online, and just learn to play the guitar. I said, how exciting will that be?
Yeah.
So it's been a case of helping people to think differently. Of course, everyone's different. Some people are more comfortable at home. Some people are locked in an apartment where they've got no garden. And, you know, that must be very tough.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to look at the positive and say we've had so many weeks now where for a lot of people, it's been a big shift.
Yeah.
For me, as I said, it's not been a big shift. And actually keeping 5 businesses alive so that there are jobs ready for people to come back to, I have never been busier in my life. I'm not complaining. I'm working very, very long days at the moment.
Yeah.
And my job is to keep the businesses alive so that when we unfurlough people, the businesses and their jobs are still there. And it's very challenging. It is really very challenging. So the only time I get frustrated is when people say to me, oh, I'm bored, I don't know what to do. And I'm thinking, oh, well, come and help me a bit, because I'm run off my feet. But use the time. That's what I keep saying to people. Use the time to do something constructive. I mean, I've started writing a book. That's what I'm doing. I'm writing a book in my spare time. Writing a book about the row, and the analogy from the row to business actually is what the book's going to be.
Oh, wow.
And I'm reading more. So I really have cut the TV altogether. I've got some really interesting books. I think they're interesting business books. And I read those. So I'm using this lockdown period to just give myself a breather, to learn a bit more.
I think as well, it's nurturing other sides of our lives, isn't it? And I think this time is so surreal. We've never experienced something quite like this. It is invisible. You look out the window, everything looks the same, but internally in the infrastructure of everything is so different. And it is very much an important thing to know how everybody does change and flex during this time. What's really interesting, Kevin, that what I've really picked up on is the fact that when you said how you are looking and working around the clock to keep those 5 businesses afloat, what really struck a chord with me was that it's held together with your integrity, and you've made it about the people. Your automatic information that you shared with us, very kindly so, was that it was about making sure there are jobs for people. You didn't mention anything else. It's very easy sometimes for people to just look at the numbers. What you've done there is you've just unknowingly so, and it's something that I've picked up on there, is that
I didn't notice it, no.
yeah, it's the integrity. You've made it about the people. And I think that there's a theme that good businesses becoming stronger and sustaining themselves, albeit adapting, in 6 months' time, in a year's time, in 5 years' time, because this isn't just something overnight, it's here in its entirety. I do believe that those that succeed are the ones that have the integrity and the ones that put people first. And I do think
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. You know, look, I've been in business a long time. I've probably been in business longer than you've been alive. So I've been in business a long time.
only 21, aren't you, Kevin? What?
I'm an old man now. But I try to just still enjoy what I do. And the phrase I use is, let's concentrate on getting better and bigger will come. If you chase numbers, people lose sight of what the business is. So let's focus on getting better. Let's be better at what we do. Let's serve our customers better. Let's develop better systems. Let's become more effective, more efficient. Let's have more fun working in the company. And if we do that, in my experience, the numbers come because the performance improves and our clients like working with us. And you know, when we make mistakes, we don't look at it as a massive issue. We look at it as a learning opportunity. And it's a different mindset. And so, I hadn't noticed what I'd said, but absolutely my focus is on making sure the jobs are there for the people to come back to whenever they come back. And we're not forcing people back. I don't know when they're coming back. I really don't. But when they come back, I want the jobs to be there. And in the background, it's not just me, but there's a leadership team who I know are working all hours God sends to keep these businesses alive. And you know, and I feel privileged to be part of their team.
And I bet they'll be very privileged and glad that they have got somebody like you in their team, because you're a very sincere person. I've always thought that about you, and you're very honest and very open about, you know, the reality of business and striving and going for something that sometimes we often think perhaps is out of our reach, and actually isn't. It's just the steps in which our mind takes us there that can allow that path to become a possibility. And in terms of the innovation and what you have seen at this time, has there been something that has caught your eye, whether it's in the industries you work within or outside of those parameters? Has something, I don't know, like hooked you, that's just maybe made you think, wow, okay, I like that, it's different, maybe a little bit off kilter or off the beaten track? Is there something that stood out for you? I mean, even if it isn't during lockdown, but more.
Well, I think what I've noticed is how quickly the world's moved to what we're doing now, online conferencing. And you know, as I said, I've been working effectively from here. This is my galactic headquarters here. And I've been working from here for the last 10 years. I go out and visit the businesses, of course I do, but the last thing the CEO needs is me turning up every day. So I typically do my work here. I've tried to get people previously, talk to me on Skype. We always talked about Skype. Talk to me on Skype. Oh, I'll come and see you. Now, if I said to somebody, well, come and see me. Oh, can we just do a Zoom call for an hour? Yeah, okay, let's do a Zoom call for an hour. So I've been quite surprised by how quickly people have become familiar and comfortable with this technology. It's very easy to use. Here we are having a perfectly sensible conversation. I'm in Berkshire, you're in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
It's easy. So that I've noticed very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing that I've seen is some of the issues that I've been talking about for years as a speaker are now coming home to roost. And that's not a case of saying, look how clever I was, but there were things that to me did not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Global supply, global logistics chains were always open to disruption, always. And having seen what this pandemic has done is making a lot of businesses think, well, actually, you know what? Sourcing this thing from the other side of the world for 2 pence cheaper is probably not the best solution long term. No, it's definitely not. Not for the health of the earth. You know, all that transportation cost and all that pollution and all that. No, it's not. So I'm kind of quite pleased to see people talking about more local supply.
Yes.
I think I've also been impressed, and you know, people have different view on Amazon one way or another. Bezos, you know, richest man in the world, all that good stuff, and are his employment terms what I would consider to be good practice? Probably not. But their logistics are phenomenal. They are phenomenal. I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. I could order something now, and it will be here in the morning. And it's just phenomenal. So that technology and that logistics system, I think, is pretty incredible. So I watch business trends and I watch people, and I'm watching how we have fun as a team because we still meet. We meet virtually, but the banter now, you know, we have 20 people on a Zoom screen, and it really is as if we're in the same room. The banter's going on, and so I've kind of enjoyed how that's worked. That's been fun.
It's nice how during this time you can take technology and you can use it in a way that goes beyond the business, you know, 4 walls of your home where it's just you, the laptop, and working in a business capacity. And then, like you say, you can bring a community of people together, have that banter, have those times where you can still share those fun times, which are so important. Because I think a lot of people have experienced the extra pressure of stress and the isolation of which some of the restrictions have brought. But if there is ways that people can get as close as they can to that human interaction physically, but digitally, and in a group of people who they know, then it does also show the other side and benefits of digital platforms such as this one we're on, like Zoom. And I would say, going forwards, what do you think? I mean, before I get to that, I have to ask, has there been, Kevin, what's been your guilty pleasure during lockdown? Most people have said food and drink and found some weird and wonderful combinations. But what has yours been?
Mine has been, I'm not a big foodie. I do enjoy a drink, but one drink, 2 drinks. My guilty pleasure has been that I don't have to turn up in an office at all. And so every morning between about 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, I can do some training. So I go out. This morning I was riding my bike. Yesterday I was in the gym. The day before I was dragging tires around the woods. And so I can take a couple of hours in the morning. I check my mails first, see what's happening, blast off anything I need to respond to. And then I give myself that luxury of that time to go and train. And that's my guilty pleasure. And I enjoy it. And people don't query it because they're not expecting me in the office. And so if they ring and the phone rings through to a voicemail, well, I'll ring them back in an hour. The world ain't going to finish just because I'm not answering the phone. But, you know, that's my pleasure. But I take pleasure in other things as well. My mum and dad are in their mid-80s and they live in North Wales. And quietly taught them how to use Skype. I haven't got them to Zoom yet, but got them on Skype. And so I see more of them now than I do normally because we talk through the screen. And my dad has gone from what do I press to ba ba ba. Hi Kev, how you doing? So it's been great to watch him over the last couple of months, become familiar with this tool and this technology.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good. Thank goodness. Thank goodness we've got it. It'd be tough without it.
It'd be very tough. And, you know, back to the days of writing and waiting for the post to turn up with a letter, I suppose, or carrier pigeons, maybe. Who knows how far back do we go? But in terms of going forwards, and yes, that's it is lovely. And I think going forwards, families and friends are starting to see how the use of communication and connection can be continued, and it is that initial sort of fumbling around. And as we've done the same with my nana and Zoom, and it's hilarious. She's wonderful. She's 93 and her spirit is never dampened, and she is cut from a different cloth, I have to say, and I've got so much admiration for her. But there are those beautiful things that have come out of this, certainly. And going forwards, who are you looking to for inspiration? Or, you know, is there anything in particular that is really inspiring you, that is where you have a moment to yourself in a morning, in an evening, and it just reminds you how you keep pushing yourself, because you do so much for everybody else? Where does your motivation or inspiration come from?
That's a very tough question to answer. I mean, I do what I do because I love what I do, and that's the reality of it. And I'm a great believer in people. I genuinely believe that people are incredible, and if you can release them, if you can give people the opportunity to contribute in whatever way that is, that's not just business, or it's not just in rowing an ocean, but people do all sorts of things. You know, gardening has suddenly become very popular. Just all sorts of things that people can do.
Yeah.
I just take pleasure in seeing people express themselves, and I watch my kids. You know, my kids are now in their early 30s, and I watch them growing and learning and developing. And my daughter's just had a family, and so it's fun to watch that. So, you know, I don't know. I never think about I never think about the next target. I just go on and see things and get excited by things, so I go and do them.
Yeah.
And my wife said to me the other day, "You're just the most impatient man I've ever met." And I said, "Yep." And she said, "Once you've done that, you want to do the next thing." And I said, "Yep."
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just the way. It's just the way I'm wired. The world is full of adventure. It's full of excitement. Go get some of it. Go get some of it.
That's the beauty. Life's rich tapestry, and there's so much of interest. And I do love your I'm trying to think of the right word, but your not lust for life, but your interest and intrigue and curiosity. And I don't think that anybody should ever lose that. And before we finish this fantastic interview, I really, really have enjoyed speaking with you today, Kevin, and thank you so much for your time. One last thing, what would be your parting piece of advice, something from the heart, whether it is business, personal, but something that you think is really important, that would be just a brilliant piece to end on?
You know, there's a Roald Dahl saying that, and I can't quote it word for word, but it's something like, "Believe in magic." Because only those who believe in magic will ever see it, will ever see the most interesting parts of the world. And so I am forever curious. And I say to people, be curious. Do be curious. Do read the signs. Do read the blue plaques. Do imagine who lived there. Do look at the world around you. It's an amazing place. So go out and experience it. Switch the telly off.
Thank you. Roald Dahl, fabulous author. I loved the twits when I was growing up. Fantastic gentleman, and some great, curious and very magical way of writing as well. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kevin. And it really has been a pleasure. And just to hear so many wonderful experiences, how you create opportunities, not just for yourself, but for so many other people, and the energy, the experience, and the support, very sincerely so, which you bring to people that you meet, and how very welcoming rather, that it is, and very approachable. So thank you. I hope you go on to
Welcome.
have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope you stay safe and well, and your family and friends as well.
Thanks, Emily. Great to talk to you.
Thank
Say
you.
hello to Yorkshire. Say hello to Yorkshire for me. I was there for 5 years, and my wife's from Yorkshire, and I played cricket in the Bradford League many years ago.
Wow.
Great fun. Great fun.
Good woman. Aye, I'll tell the rest at Yorkshire and go up on Ilkley Moor. What was
that.
it? And have some fish and chips and a cup of tea. It'll be a delight. Well, take care. Thank you again. And yes, all the very best. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.